Hey guys, it's Paul, combat veteran, MMA fighter, YouTuber, and today we are checking out the most requested video, right? And it is a doozy. It is Bricky's Every Faction in Warhammer 40k Explained. Now, this is huge, and to do it justice, I'm going to have to split it up into a couple of parts, but no problem. I'm going to get through it. I got all weekend to do nothing but make videos and watch my Warhammer 40k, so you guys are going to, next week, this week, as you're watching this, going to get to see my reaction to what sounds like one of the definitive Warhammer 40k lore videos. And at, almost 3 million views in a year, yeah, this is probably the definitive lore vid for a reason. So I'm excited to check it out. But first, if you too know that if you were bored enough, you might become a Necron, hit that subscribe button, and of course be sure to like this video to tell YouTube that I am making quality stuff, and check out my Instagram. I make Warhammer 40k memes, post old lore photos, all kinds of fun stuff. Also, check out my second channel, Military History Gear Review, real world history, military, outdoors, a fun combination. And I just started having a merch shop. So I commissioned an artist, and I just had my first design come in. So check out the shirt. I think it's pretty cool. It's pretty fun. And of course, I'll model it for you when I finally get mine in. But definitely you want to be an original. I don't know how long I'm going to sell these designs for, so get in while you can. All right, and having done all that, let's get started to Bricky's Every Faction Warhammer 40k Explained, Part 1 of X.
Doesn't necessarily serve the Omnissiah, but someone who can appreciate them. You will not be getting my legs today, as I will be replacing them with various things depending on which faction we are currently talking about, to add a little bit more context and possible comedy to whatever the hell I am currently doing.
Okay, one of those is an anime faction. I'm hoping he tells me which one is the anime faction so I can avoid them.
So, hello everybody, my name is Bricky, and this is going to be a long video and a large project that has been going on for quite some time. This is, I need two hands for this. This is every single Warhammer 40k race in kind of a nutshell, explained, a little bit of explanation, a little bit of lore, a little bit of talking about the tabletop, mostly lore, what they're all about, and also a little bit of background for those of you who just have no clue what Warhammer 40,000 is. Now you see,
Well, thanks to you guys, I at least know sort of what Warhammer 40k is. Seriously, thank you to the commenters in all my videos that have given me a lot of enlightenment and helped me understand what it is that I'm seeing.
Warhammer and Warhammer 40,000 is a universe people hear plenty of but don't know a whole lot about. They see, oh, there's these dudes in big power armor with chainsaw swords, and they got these big old green orcs, and there's some bugs over there, and everyone calls these guys weebs, and then there's these spiky bitches over here, and I don't get it. I don't understand. Where do I start? Well, this video is particularly for you, or for those of you who have a
Hey, I'm a heretic. I mean, just kidding. Haha. No heresy here. At all.
little bit of knowledge, but you're kind of curious about each of the different races and factions in Warhammer. So overall, the Warhammer universe is vast when it comes to lore and background, and each different faction is so different with the things that they believe in, and some are human, some are transhuman, like where they all have all these crazy ass electronics on them. You've got aliens and you've got the chaos factions, and there's so much to entail that I decided to embark on this project to tell you what each and every single one of them is about, and what the Warhammer universe is about as well, to give at least a little bit of an intro to this extremely bloated but very, very enjoyable world that I and many others partake in. So, I will be explaining every single faction in the Warhammer 40k universe, at least all the factions you can play as, and some smaller factions here and there. I will not be discussing absolutely everything in it because that is a little bit much, and I'm not going to go too mega deep into the lore. I'm going to give you a pretty solid overview of each of the different factions.
Okay, well, I don't even know what an Adeptus Arbites is, so no great loss there.
And have you learn a little bit about them, and we'll discuss a little bit of the tabletop as well in case you are curious about that. But for this episode entirely, we are discussing the Imperium of Man, because that takes up a fat chunk of Warhammer lore. Oh, boo-hoo. What is Warhammer 40,000? Well, the 40,000 starts off is the year 40,000. The 41st millennium, that's where it takes place, is in the year 40,000, 41,000 AD.
So wait, does it take place in the year 40,000?
You're already more knowledgeable. Let me read you a quote, first of many quotes in this video. It is the 41st millennium.
Oh, it takes place in the year 40,000. Of course.
For more than 100 years, the Emperor has sat immobile on the golden throne of Earth. He is the
100 centuries.
master of mankind by the will of the gods, and master of 1,000,000 worlds by the might of his inexhaustible armies. He is a rotting carcass, writhing invisibly with power from the dark age of technology. He is the carrion lord of the Imperium, for whom 1,000 souls are sacrificed every day so that he may never truly die. To be a man in such times is to be amongst untold billions. It is to live in the cruelest and most bloody regime imaginable. These are the tales of those times. Forget the power of technology and science, for so much has been forgotten, never to be relearned. Forget the promise of progress and understanding, for in the grim, dark future, there is only war. There is no peace amongst the stars, only an eternity of carnage and slaughter, and the laughter of thirsting gods. Everything...
Oh, okay, well, this seems pleasant. Just want to point out, okay, I have a pet theory that I've shared with my wife, that the rising popularity of Warhammer 40k, though it's definitely been trending upward for years as far as I can tell, I feel like as the world has in the past year has maybe felt a little grimdark, I think that the Warhammer 40k's sort of gamification of extreme grimdarkness makes people, I don't know, makes them feel a little better, makes it feel like if you can have fun playing Warhammer 40k despite its intrinsic darkness, then perhaps it leaves you feeling like there's some level of control over the seemingly out of control grimness of our present. Plus, it could always be worse. There's no Tyranids as far as I could tell. But yeah, I don't know. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about my pet theory, if your experience kind of jives with that.
blows. And it blows fucking hard. Warhammer is probably the most dark and depressing universes ever in fiction, or at least like top 3. Everything is so absurdly horrible, destructive, or overpowered that it all kind of ends up canceling itself out. It's like Dota. War rages across the galaxy. Interstellar travel is only possible due to sacrificing 1,000 souls a day to a rotting carcass of a man who you believe to be your god. Demonic gods and just demons tear open the fabric of reality on a whim. Other Xenos or even other humans end up killing each other in untold billions across the galaxy.
This is crazy. I mean, just the scale of dead people and things. I sort of see how you could think that you could kill enough people, then in theory you could like conjure the physical manifestations of death and disease and illness and evil. How you could like just slaughter them into existence. I sort of see how you think that may be possible. And it's also sort of strange that, you know, there was a time, I mean, not too long ago, man, World War I and II, I mean, the scale of the dead there, I think World War II was between 20 and 50 million, I think, all told, who died as a result either of direct conflict or of war. of starvation and disease and displacement and secondary effects. And yeah, it's sort of terrifying to think about, like, the scale of life lost in some of these conflicts, and the ability, not only that, but the ability of the world, right, the post World War II world, to just chew through a 50 million lives like it was nothing and just keep on rolling through it. It's sort of incredible to see that that's even possible.
It's a time of unending war, slaughter, and a bloodbath amongst everybody. Planets are deemed unrecoverable and are completely destroyed on a whim. Everything sucks, but that's like the charm of it. See, everything in Warhammer is evil, but being evil is kind of fun. Like, humanity in its own right is a xenophobic, prejudice, and religious zealot group that kill each other just as much as they kill all of their enemies. And they're like mid to high tier evil on the evil.
Okay, all right. My rolls. Okay. Evil, got it. The dice are always loaded against you. Tau players, Imperium Man, Eldar. Eldar are more evil. Okay. Wow. So the Necrons don't even show up. Tyranids are... Oh, his rolls are good? That guy, I don't know who that is. Okay, maybe I've got this in the wrong order. Oh, no. Guy who brings food is the best. So maybe Tyranids are not evil. Maybe they're just not evil because they don't have, like, a consciousness. Like, a bear isn't evil. Even if it eats a person, it just eats a person probably because that person had it coming. So I could kind of see that.
Evil scale of Warhammer, nobody is good. No matter who you are, everyone is some flavor, some color of evil. Whoever you pick, you are going to be the bad guy. But that's the fun of it. Because being the bad guy is badass. Villains are cool. They look cool, they got cool outfits, they got cool weapons, they got cool armies. Villains are cool, man. And when everyone is a villain, everyone is pretty cool. That's what makes this so charming, is that everyone can be the bad guy. So let's start off talking about the main bad guy, quote unquote, the Imperium of Man.
It's hair, whack. It's gear, whack.
The Imperium of Man is the main empire of the human race. All of humanity is under this one flag called the Imperium. And about 10,000 years ago, there was a man. He was the emperor of mankind, a 10-foot tall psychic demigod who led humanity across the stars to colonize tons and tons of...
Okay, if a 10-foot tall dude lived forever and then was like, hey, God isn't real, I can see where the confusion comes in. Like, how did a 10-foot tall man who doesn't die and has psychic power, how does that exist without gods? God or a god or something on this power scale of a god. Like, that's almost the most incredible belief he asks us to adopt. Like, you almost have to have blind faith to be like, yeah, there's no God. This 10-foot tall man who doesn't die and can see the psychic powers. Also, right, if you go through the warp, demons live there. Like, you literally can visit hell, and you still are like, nah, not real.
Of worlds, create superhuman soldiers, and really bring humanity into a new age. This man, the Emperor of Mankind, was a Psyker. And a Psyker is like a magician of sorts. In the world of 40k, there is the Warp, the Immaterium, kind of like hell, but sort of like a purgatory dimension of hell. And a Psyker is someone who can take that power and manifest it through their mind to use it to do stuff. Like witchcraft stuff, magician stuff, spells, and lots of other things, but we don't want to get too into that. The Emperor, big boy Psyker. Top tier, A+, maybe even S. Now, the Emperor created a bunch...
Is S? Is that like a UK grading system? In America, we could only get A+. S stands for sucks.
Bunch of sons. Yes, created a bunch of sons known as the Primarchs. He created 20... 18 Primarchs, to have them lead all of the different legions of humanity to the different stars and plans to help colonize and bring it out. These
Okay, if you've ever trained at an MMA or jiu-jitsu gym, you will know that the makeup of that gym, at least in the United States, looks more or less like the Primarchs. Like 1 in 3 people are bald dudes with beards. And I say that as a bald dude with a beard, right? That's how you know you found your people. And obviously, a large portion of jiu-jitsu gyms then ascended to become Primarchs, and I assume Space Marines.
Primarchs,
but that's probably just me being extremely biased. Does lore specify any of this, like where the Emperor found his like regular Space Marine, or where he found his Primarch like gene seed, other than himself, obviously?
Are basically like little versions of the Emperor. Not all of them are psychers, but a lot of them are very, very powerful, and they lead his special Space Marine legions. Then this big clusterfuck happened called the Horus Heresy, where the Emperor's favorite son, the Primarch, Horus, ended up joining Chaos and leading 9 of the 18, half of his Primarchs directly to Earth to fight down the Emperor himself. Now,
yeah, so many bald dudes. When you join Chaos, do you become bald? Is that how it works? Like, is it like long flowing locks is good and bald is bad? Because, you know, as a bald dude, that's a little offensive.
If you want to know what Chaos is, remember what I mentioned earlier? The warp, that immaterium, the hellish place? In there relies the 4 Chaos gods. Imagine like Satan and 3 other Satans. The warp being kind of...
I played Diablo. Yeah, there's not one Satan, there's 3, and they kind of got their own theme. It's like Hawaiian Satan and Ice Satan, Poison Satan. Yeah, I get what you're talking about. Also, I'm going to apologize now for the fact that I don't really have any like tactical commentary, because none of this has any bearing on anything I ever did in the military. Luckily, we never had to go through the warp or, you know, genetically engineer our soldiers. Though there are some rumors that China is experimenting with genetically enhanced soldiers. But mostly if we had that, well, I don't know. Actually, throughout history, it's almost never been tried. There's one instance in like the 1600s where a kind of crazy king tried to breed like really tall soldiers, but he never actually used them for fighting. He just kind of liked tall dudes. It's pretty weird. I'll try to stick it in the comments what exactly I'm talking about. Maybe I'll link to like the Wikipedia page, but it's really bizarre. But it's the only time armies have tried to do any kind of like gene selection or gene editing, or even just like that like prescribed evolution for their soldiers. Mostly because it would be really expensive, right? You got to think, like, to build an army, even in the 1700s, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of people, or tens of thousands at least, and you'd have to individually screen and select tens of thousands of people. It would be just really hard to do. You know, the closest you could do, and then of course you'd have to like you'd have to do, you know, 10,000 men, but then you'd also have to have 10,000 women, or if you wanted to really go unethical, 10,000 artificial womb vats, which you'd have to invent. Yeah, it would be really complicated to do.
Of evil, those Chaos gods, that's the reason. And so those Chaos gods manipulated Horus, and then Horus helped manipulate all 8 other Primarchs to lead this giant coup directly on the Emperor on Earth. And they fucked up.
So, interesting. That shit happens all the time. In fact, that's how military coups often occur, is instead of Primarchs, you have politically connected generals, and what you do is you have to get a critical mass of usually the armed forces in a country, or the security forces, right? So the Army, Navy, Air Force, and also usually the internal security forces, right? You have to get some sort of combination together and form a little anti-government coalition. And you sort of bring them all into the fold and you agree on what your general objectives are. And sometimes it's actually, like in the case of Turkey, it's the restoration of democracy. The generals say, hey, we think this rule has gotten too autocratic. We're going to step in and we're going to do something. But the hardest part is the coalition building. And it usually starts with one person, right? But the person who emerges as the leader of the movement often isn't the original coup member. Sometimes it's actually more likely to be the last person to join, because they're usually obviously the final linchpin, right? You get this, once you get the last person and you decide, okay, we don't need to anymore because we've gotten the army, for example. The army's so big that it gives us our decisive amount of manpower, but to get the general on board, we had to agree that they would become the president or whatever. So yeah, sort of an interesting parallel. If the Chaos Gods are involved in coups around the world, they are subtle about it. Usually it just seems like regular, good old human nature programmed in greed, power, and sometimes patriotism.
Shit. After this huge civil war, Horus died, but not before brutally wounding the Emperor, and right at the end of his life, they put the Emperor on this large golden throne on Earth, in which he is now alive, just barely, but slowly rotting away, powering something called the Astra Militarum, so long as he stays alive, and is fed 1,000 people a day. The Astronomicon is like the North Star. If you want to do interstellar travel in 40k, you need to pass through that demonic warp I mentioned earlier. But how do you know where you're going? Well, the Emperor is there putting a nice little navigator right there. He helps navigate you to know where you're going. If you want to go from Earth to some crazy solar system across the way, you need to go through that warp, and then you need to know where you're going, go through there, and pop your way out. It's like doing nether travel in Minecraft, so you can shore...
That doesn't help me at all. I've never played Minecraft. But again, you guys in the comments, you guys spun me up. I get it. It's sort of like a combination of a GPS and like a lighthouse or Polaris North Star that helps orient you while you're navigating through, you know, Hell World.
In the distance between going to areas. So long as the Emperor is alive and being fed 1,000 people a day to stay alive, you can do that. The moment he dies, interstellar travel's gone for all of humanity. You're so boned. Now, since the Horus heresy 10,000 years ago, the Imperium has fallen from grace substantially. All technology has started to dwindle and die. There is now giant fundamental religious extremists that now believe the Emperor of Mankind was a deity, a true living god, which is probably the last thing the Emperor would have wanted to be remembered for. So now you have this thing called...
Despite, again, living forever, being 10 feet tall, and having magic psychic powers. To a regular person, it might as well be godhood. I just gotta point that out.
The ecclesiarchy, which is this giant church entirely devoted to spreading the good word of the Emperor. He is now the Holy Emperor God, the God Emperor of mankind. And all of the Imperium has taken up worshiping him to the fullest extent and killing anything that isn't humanity in his name. The Imperium has this futuristic...
Okay, wait, so this is an important question, and maybe he'll answer this. Was the Emperor xenophobic? Like, would the Emperor have been like, kill every Xeno? Would the Emperor have been like, only kill the bad ones? Like, just kill the Orcs and the Tyranids, but we can work with the Eldar and the Tau? Like, what was the Emperor... Or was the Emperor like, I'm the Emperor of Man, and killing Xenos, protecting mankind from all threats, and they're a threat just by existing? Again, commenters, please help me out.
The Gothic tone to it, and a hefty religious zealotry to them. If you think anything against the Emperor, that's heresy, and you deserve to die. That is called being a heretic. Heretics die in 40k. There is no such thing as freedom of religion. There is no such thing as freedom of speech, so long as you are against the Emperor. There is no such thing as any kind of tolerance. Everyone
You can say anything you want, as long as it's praising the Emperor.
is a religious zealot. Some more than others, but no matter what, you're preaching that good word. So right now, Everyone in humanity is trying to expand their empire across the stars. If you are a heretic, someone who doesn't believe in the Emperor, you are deserving of death. If you believe in the Chaos Gods, you are also a heretic and you deserve death. If you are an alien race of any kind, you are a filthy Xenos and you deserve death as well. So long as the murder continues and humanity expands, the Imperium of Man is very, very happy. However, the largest fighting force of...
And we've talked about this before, but I'm going to say it again. You know, there's a lot of regular human history in which governments, especially totalitarian governments, need war to continue. And they need it, first off, to, obviously, we all know, unify the population against something, right? We also need it to explain, for an enemy, to explain the suffering of the people, right? Because if, again, imagine North Korea, if it wasn't for the imperialist Americans who are always trying to crush their country, Venezuela does the same thing. They actually officially blame their deflated or inflating currency on economic terrorism by the United States, ignoring the fact that the U.S. doesn't print bolivars. You need that external example because it offers an alternative explanation of why life is so terrible for the residents of that country, right? Just like if there was no enemy, then you would have to answer the fact, hey, why are we so poor? Why is there no food? Why is there no freedom? Why can't I say these things, right? You need an external enemy who is responsible for all of your ills directly or indirectly. And of course, in every good strongman totalitarian system, you need to keep your army as far away as possible, right? The closer it is to your capital city, to your home, to your bureaucracy, to your heart of government, the more rapidly they can threaten you if they get that critical mass necessary for a coup. In contrast, if you have a forward deployed military, it's much harder for them to, you have much more notice as they consolidate, right? You'll notice your troops coming off the front line, you'll notice them gathering, you'll notice them moving to your city, and when it comes to crushing a coup, a week's time or 2 weeks of notice is decisive. Right? It's absolutely decisive. So, again, 3 reasons why regular governments love, often strongman or totalitarian governments love having and depend on continuous warfare.
This Imperium is my personal favorite faction, and the first faction we will discuss, the Astra Militarum, or also known as the Imperial Guard.
Pretty shit now, man. You finished? That's it, man. Game over, man.
The Imperial Guard is the main fighting force of the Imperium, and in a world of horrifying creatures, galactic monstrosities, the literal demons themselves breaking through the fabric of time to kill you, the Imperial Guard are untold billions of regular men and women wearing modern day like flak armor with a laser rifle. This is the humble las gun, the main weapon of the Imperial Guard. It fires superheated plasma lasers at an extremely fast fire rate. It is reliable, never jams. It can blow off limbs, giant holes in concrete. It is overall an extremely devastating weapon in modern day. It is one of the weakest in the 40k universe. Yeah, a laser rifle.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, imagine having a musket. Imagine having like a repeating, like a Henry repeating rifle in the Revolutionary War, right? You'd be incredibly potent because you could shoot so much faster. But what are you going to do against a modern soldier? Nothing.
Rifle that never jams. It could blow off.
But I will say this. The comparison is, obviously you're talking about thousands of years of technological innovation, or lack thereof. But in the U.S. invasion of Afghanistan and in Iraq, you saw a lot of World War II era weapons, and even sometimes before then being used. The classic being the Mosin Nagant, right? The Soviet Mosin Nagant was designed in 1891, and it's was just so mass produced. It was the standard infantry rifle of the Soviet Union in World War II. It was just super reliable. It used a very old style of cartridge called a rimmed cartridge, but it was also the cartridge that fed the Soviet PKM machine gun, Soviet and Chinese and North Vietnamese PKM machine gun, and the Dragunov sniper rifle. And so it meant that ammo is almost always plentiful, it's always reliable, and when you affix a scope and take your time to get proficient with it, you can actually reach out and touch someone up to 600 meters with the Mosin Nagant. So despite it being a 100-plus-year-old rifle, you can still see it in action. I've seen it in photos of the Ukraine, in Ukraine against the separatists. I've seen it, photos of it being used by Kurdish forces against ISIS in Syria in around 2014. So again, it's proof that despite being a very aging weapon, it can still be effective, but it needs to have the tactics behind it, right? If you fight with a World War II rifle using World War II tactics, you will get crushed. And probably, based on what he's saying, it sounds like that's what the Imperial Guard does. They take an out-of-date rifle, and instead of modifying their tactics to make the out-of-date rifle remain sort of effective, they just stick to classic old-school tactics.
Limbs, one of the weakest weapons. That's the world we're in right now. But who cares? Because the Imperial Guard has, in each battle, 500,000 of these men and women. 30,000 large armored tanks, 10,000 artillery batteries. The Imperial Guard wins through...
Okay, so guys, we're at about 30 minutes. The Imperial Guard, obviously, I'm going to have a lot to weigh in on because they're the most modern faction. But I'm trying to keep these at 30 minutes, and man, they are not making it easy because we're at 30 minutes right now and only 12 minutes through every single Warhammer 40k faction explained. Part 1 of my part 1. Just the same, guys, obviously, let me know if there's other details in the comments or other details that he hasn't covered or that he's kind of glossed over that are important for me to understand. Of course, tune in for the next episode, and be sure again to hit me up on Instagram, my second channel, and check out my merch store. I'm designing and adding new stuff all the time. I've got some fun ideas. Okay, having done all that, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time.